the specifics. So good. And then we're also just going to go, and we've got a lot of people. I got blown up on Twitter today. A lot of people are asking me about what was I talking about with using ultrasound on the spleen to fight COVID. So we're going to elaborate on that too. We have a lot of people tuning in from Twitter as well. So, so yeah, you can see here the NIH publication, how COVID-19 hijacks the cytoskeleton. I'm going to pull up on screen. Just give me a second. Some of the pictures, some of the reference material for what we're specifically talking about here in today's case. So I have this here. We're going to do the window capture. Give me a second. Good. So as people kind of get in here, get comfy. Guys, you know, look, I know I'm not TikTok. I'm not dancing. I'm not playing music. I get it. I'm not going to be the most entertaining dancing monkey that you're going to see all day. But I am a biomedical developer. I work with ultrasound all the time. And we specifically work on pretty novel treatments that help people with health challenges. So I would encourage you to, you know, stick around. If this is going to be the one long form piece of content that you watch all day, let this one be it, because this could save your life. All right, so let me get this up on screen. I have the ability to capture my window, which would be how COVID-19. Yep, there we go. Okay, we're going to pull this up here and view it. Okay, good. Okay, so can you guys see this on screen? This is a, yep, this is it. Okay, good. So we're going to minimize this for just a moment, and we'll zoom in, we'll blow it up as we go through. Just to kind of set the pace for everybody, we just like to do just a quick vagus nerve, just to pay homage to the gods of the vagus nerve. We just like to do a little quick breathing exercise. You'll just take a big deep breath in, and you're going to inhale, hold it, squeeze it, and then exhale. It's going to activate your vagus nerve. It's also going to help you learn, pay attention, and remember what I'm teaching you. So just take a moment. We're going to take a deep breath in through your nose, really deep. Hold it. Take an extra inhale just to fill your lungs. Hold it, squeeze it. And then slowly exhale through your nose. Just like that. Okay, good. All right. So the topic of today is based on this, what I would consider a seminal paper that was published just very recently. Returned to today, actually, as of today, by the author over on Twitter. He tagged me and he said specifically in this paper, he references the ability to stimulate the cytoskeleton with ultrasound, which is an area of specialization that I do hold. Oh, I can see that you can see my bookmarks here. I don't want you to see my bookmarks here, although it's all work-related stuff anyway. So let me move I'm going to move myself here, expand the paper so we can zoom through it and all that fun stuff. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go through this a little bit. So as far as the specifics of this paper, this was written by Dr. Stuart Hamroff, who's an anesthesiologist. He is a world-renowned expert in the study of the cytoskeleton, how it works, and he partnered up with some pretty remarkable physicists to be able to write this. Basically, what you're saying here is the idea that COVID not only triggers your immune system to cause cytokine storms, which is what is deadly and damaging, but also the effects that it has lingering in your body long term also. And can you guys confirm to me just in the chat, can you guys see this? I can see it on my screen, but I'm not sure if you can see it on the Facebook. If you guys could just write in the chat, like, yeah, we can see the paper, that'd be fantastic. So how COVID-19 hijacks the skeleton, the cytoskeleton, and therapeutic implications. Okay, cool. TK, thank you. You can see this. Okay. So basically going through this, I'll read out some parts of it that are relevant. Obviously, we all know what COVID is. Basically, the clinical pathology of COVID is one that it increases viral load due to intracellular trafficking. That alone is an entire video, but there's this feature of cells that are infected with COVID where they shoot out like strands from one cell to the other, like needles, and they hijack other cells. That's mentioned further in here, and this is how COVID hijacks cells. The important thing, oh yeah, that's called Philopedia. Philopedia, that's the word right there, Philopedia. It's pretty bizarre. It's pretty sci-fi. If you've ever seen the movie Alien, you'll understand the whole transfer of matter from cell to cell. Immune dysfunction. So this is where I come in. We do work with the vagus nerve all the time. Your vagus nerve regulates your immune system. We've seen in countless papers, I'm not going to pull them up, you can Google it yourself. We've done videos on this, is that COVID specifically attacks the vagus nerve. This is why people are losing the ability to swallow. They're getting digestive disorder. They're getting immune dysfunction. They're developing heart issues, blood pressure, exercise intolerance. Your vagus nerve is critical in the function of all parts of your body. All autonomic function is regulated in part and very crucial to have interventions from your vagus nerve. If your vagus nerve stops working, then you're in trouble. Your body cannot function properly. So immune dysfunction's pretty big. Hyperinflammatory cytokine storms to ineffective or absent response. This is the important thing that Dr. Stuart Hameroff talks about, which is the factors depend directly on microtubules and the microtubule organizing center, the MTOC, which is the centrosome, basically. And this is what spike proteins are able to do. They're able to jack in to your microtubule organizing center, which regulates cellular division. So you've ever seen a cell have the arms spread, grab the DNA and spread it into two cells, mitosis? Basically, spike proteins are able to influence that ability and are most likely trying to do as much damage to your body as possible. This has big implications in terms of treatments and everything related to that. So this is pretty, I don't want to use the word scary, but there's not another way to say it. This is pretty big. Now, don't worry if you're listening to this. I'm an optimist. At the end of this, we're going to talk about actual solutions, ways that we can target it. And no, I'm not going to recommend electrical stimulation for the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve stimulation with electricity would be completely ineffective in this model of how spike proteins work. But there is something else called sonication, which can actually shake spike proteins out of the cytoskeleton, which is validated here. Who is this guy? Mark? This is this guy. You're in my Facebook group. I didn't invite you in here. You're in my vagus nerve stimulation repair Facebook group. We're talking about COVID and spike proteins. So basically, yeah. So SARS-CoV hijacks the cytoskeletal functions by docking inside the centriole barrels, which enables certain interactions between the virus's spike proteins and the C terminals of microtubules, and compromises everything else. Okay. So now let's look at some pictures, okay? Pictures speak a million words. Also, you'll notice that it mentions low-intensity ultrasound here in the abstract. We will be talking about that today, which I'm pretty excited. Many of you in the chat know what I'm talking about. All right, so let's get to a important picture. I want to scroll up so you can see this, okay? So in the center of your cells is the microtubule organizing center, the centriole. They usually look like this. This is the specific place where spike proteins are able to dock into rather permanently, but not forever, okay? There are ways to jiggle or wiggle them out. That's the scientific terminology, would be wiggling them off, detaching them from the MTOC, and freeing your cells from long-term spike protein damage. That's what they look like. This is the thing that is what controls all cellular division. You guys raise your hand or nod your head if you understand the importance of the ability for a cell to split DNA evenly between two cells. We all know that that's important. That's like middle school biology. So another really freaky piece of the puzzle is how spike proteins are able to do something called philopedia. And philopedia is where a cell, a cell that is infected with COVID is able to shoot the cytoskeleton and penetrate into another cell and deposit further RNA to be replicated in the next cell. Let me see if there's a specific picture here. There doesn't seem to be a picture of philopedia. Give me a second. I'm going to pull up a picture of philopedia so you guys can see what that looks like. Philopedia. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. All right, I'm going to transfer this over. Hopefully you can see this. Let me just double check here. Okay, yeah. So you can see this. So imagine usually for a cell, for a virus to spread, you usually think of it shooting out, ejecting matter into the solution around your body. In the model of what's called philopedia, which is what COVID is able to do, I think it's pretty well clear that this is somewhat of an engineered thing. Are we in agreement on that maybe? I don't know. Am I going to get canceled for saying that? Probably. But basically, philopedia is an observed mechanism. Yes, it's a lot like warfare, yes. Philopedia is where basically spike proteins are able to hijack the cytoskeleton of a cell, use the skin, and stick out needles into adjacent cells so it can just bypass any firewall that might exist of a cell. Any cellular protection has no defense against this needle of the cytoskeleton. Basically, the only proposed mechanism for how this could work is if the spike protein was able to hijack the entire cellular central computer. So your cell's nuclear mTOC, the centriole, can get hijacked and do these really remarkable, scary processes to infect other things. There's some other pictures here that will demonstrate this, right? So here, another picture. We see the growth cone and we see philopedia, right? So philopedium is where a cell is able to stick a needle, like a hypodermic needle, into other nearby cells. Scary stuff. Very, very scary stuff. Now, let's look at another picture here. So in terms of the question of where the spike proteins are latching onto, they're basically locking into this. This is a cross-section of the centriole, the central cytoskeletal master computer of a cell. And the spike proteins go into the central hub, and they dock into it. There's another picture. It's pretty crazy stuff. Here we go. Here's a really good picture of it. Let me just zoom in here. Trying to manage like two different screens here with the delay. Okay, so you can see that okay? So on the left-hand side, there's the central hub, and in red is the spike protein. The spike proteins dock in, needle in to the central hub of the microtubule central mTOC, the centriole of the cell. That's where they're located. So they're very deep in the cell. Now, again, pointing forward to a question we're going to answer is for those who are using electrical stimulation on your ear or on your neck, there is zero pass-through of electrons into the central hub. So if you're trying to use electricity, you aren't even close. It's like shooting a BB gun at a satellite. That's how there's no chance that electricity can even anywhere get near the depth of how far this is into your cell. So this is how they're docking into the central hub. And then they stay that way. There's nothing that can detach that. There's no medicines or anything like that we've developed that can remove this from the body. which is pretty crazy. So here we have some electrostatic mapping. This is for the purpose of modeling how a spike protein is able to dock electromagnetically into the central hub. This is what they do molecular modeling for. Here's another picture. Let's see if it loads here on your end. So this is there's 3 spike proteins indicated here. Each spike protein on one end has a hook and a barb. And this is basically how it's able to lock electrostatically into the central hub of every infected cell in your body. Now, the good news is that most likely the spike protein is unable to replicate at that point. So any of the lasting damage that is still maintaining itself is essentially the collective intelligence influencing, yes, Trisha, Trisha, to answer your question, am I talking about COVID or the vaccine? It's actually agnostic. That's the scariest part here, is we're just talking about the spike protein, which an mRNA vaccine basically makes your body generate the spike protein. Okay. So it's agnostic. We're just talking about how the spike protein is able to actually hijack an important part of your cytoskeleton, the centriole. We've shown a picture of it. Definitely the replay for this will be worth it. I'll do a full review, a quick 1-minute summary in a few moments, probably I'd say in about 8 minutes. If you stick with me, we'll do a full quick review for those who may come in late. Okay. Yeah, guys, I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just sharing this is non-political. We're just sharing information. So anyway, all right. So in the discussion section, we talk about what is the point of a spike protein in doing this. Why would a spike protein want to do this? First and foremost, this makes it so that the virus may be very difficult to kill or to avoid. And here. Okay, so this first section I think is important. Here's what it says. While the virus may be difficult to kill or avoid, most infections are not serious if the following 3 factors are minimized: excessive viral load due to host cell entry, intracellular transport and replication; 2, cell-to-cell spread by Filippedia, which is what we demonstrated earlier, where the cells are actually able to inject matter into adjacent cells without having to go through the membrane. They just hypodermically inject particulate into the nearby cells, which is very scary. And then 3, immune dysfunction ranging from hyperinflammatory cytokine storm to inadequate response. Okay, so this is, if you minimize those 3 things, COVID infection might not be that bad. So this might make the differentiator between why some people get really sick and why some people do not, is minimizing these 3 things. 1, can you minimize the spread of the virus from cell to cell? That's number 1. Number 2, can you minimize the spread of cell-to-cell spread where Filippedia is involved, where needles shoot out of a cell from a hijacked cytoskeleton and inject it into another cell? And then 3rd, if you can modulate the immune system properly during that initial immune function so that you neither have a cytokine storm or 0 immune response. And guess what? Your vagus nerve controls that 3rd component very effectively. If your vagus nerve is healthy, if your vagus nerve is null and void, you're probably going to have a cytokine storm that is very severe. Guess what they're doing in hospitals when it comes to a cytokine storm? And guys, I don't know if you've heard, but I do believe that there's more rounds of COVID coming and all kinds of stuff, right? So knowing this, I think, could be important, right? Okay. So moving through here, let's look at some therapeutic approaches, right? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm not going to wax poetic about this stuff. Let's talk about some identified some identified therapeutic interventions, things that we do know about here. All right. So the potential therapies for these three issues of viral replication are anti-microtubule drugs. So that would be colchicine, Taxol, and others, but with a lower toxicity risk, noscapine, that impair the microtubule and mTOC function on which virus proliferation imparts itself. That's an exploratory mechanism that needs to be investigated further, because anytime you put a drug into the body, you're definitely playing with fire, for sure. However, the second proposed intervention would be low-intensity ultrasound vagal stimulation at the neck surface to enlist anti-inflammatory vagal actions. And 3, low-intensity ultrasound to the spleen to modulate inflammatory actions of immune cells, possibly dampening the effects of mTOC-mediated cytokine storms, where the latter two approaches use low-intensity ultrasound to resonate the microtubules' characteristic mechanical vibrations. Remember when I said if you're doing electrical stimulation, there's zero vibratory oscillatory effect on any of the cytoskeletal microtubules. Therefore, electrical stimulation is non-effective at addressing these key issues of a spike protein hijacking situation. And we really are talking about spike proteins are able to latch into your microtubule lattice network. Basically, you know how a cell has like a skin around it? Well, the skin around a cell isn't as dumb as most people consider it to be. Actually, the cytoskeletal shell around all cells is called the cytoskeleton. And we found is that most intelligence of a cell is not likely to live on the inside nucleus, but the actual intelligence of a single cell is actually in the cytoskeleton itself. So when you hear that spike proteins are able to hijack the cytoskeleton, it's the same thing as saying hackers have been able to infect the mainframe of the entire global internet. That is the same degree. If you heard that, and you heard that hackers had injected a 0-day virus into the entire global information network system, you'd be like, that sounds bad. This is the exact same kind of thing. If the spike protein is getting into the cytoskeleton, as we found here, then this is bad. So we need to think outside of the box for fixing it, because the issue of long COVID is substantial, is terrifying, is probably going to affect billions of people within the next probably 2 or 3 years, is going to kill a lot of people. A lot of people are going to lose their lives, lose their livelihood, lose their grasp on reality in a sense because of this. And so I think we now need to have that discussion of what are we going to practically do about the problem. Masking up and HVAC in every building, great idea, go for it. More vaccines, whatever. What am I going to do? Guys, if you're like, oh, he's pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine, what in your mind do you think I'm going to be able to do about that? Me personally. I've got a Facebook group with 25,000 people in it, okay? That's pretty big as far as Facebook groups go. I've done pretty well for myself in terms of growing the conversation around vagus nerve stimulation, but like get off my ass, man, if you think I'm going to like change a multi-billion-dollar vaccine industry, okay? I'm not going to have that conversation with you. All right? It's going to happen, right? We're not here to debate that. What I'm basically saying, what's being proposed in this paper, is that the fixes that are being proposed are probably not going to address this problem. Now let's talk about why is vagus nerve stimulation indicated in this paper? Why is the spleen specifically implicated in this paper? The reason being is because your vagus nerve has a branch that runs down the left side of your neck all the way down to your spleen. which is on the left side under your rib cage. There's one single branch that's actually rather large called the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. When that one nerve of the vagus nerve is activated and turned on because of the input of ultrasound, low intensity pulsed ultrasound, you get this almost miraculous regulation of inflammation throughout the body. You can take someone who is in the midst of a deadly cytokine storm and almost turn that cytokine storm off completely, bring them back into homeostasis again, and save their lives. This is an actual intervention that is currently being used at the more advanced medical hospitals across the country. It's just certainly not going to be something you're going to see on CNN. But UCSD, San Diego, major hospitals in a major metropolitan city network are utilizing this exact intervention in patients with COVID. If you don't think that's amazing, you're not paying attention. This is pretty big news. So the vagus nerve modulates the immune system in the spleen. That's the importance of the vagus nerve in the immune function. So according to this specific mechanism, in response to infection or injury, the parasympathetic vagus nerve transmits signals from the brain to the adrenergic splenic nerve, which consequently interacts with splenic immune cells. Stimulation of the vagus nerve, let me highlight where we're at right here. Stimulation of the vagus and spleen nerves triggers a neural immune reflex and dampens the inflammatory response to infection or tissue injury. Vagus nerve stimulation, also known as VNS, it should be noted, refers to any technique that stimulates the vagus nerve, e.g. electrical or ultrasound pulses. And as I specifically indicated, electricity has no hope in hell of doing the kind of fixes and therapeutic approaches that is being indicated here. Furthermore, if you look down further, vagal modulation with ultrasound. The vagus nerve, which is this is great. This is the kind of stuff I love teaching people anyway. So it's in this paper is fantastic. The vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the nervous system, innervates visceral organs and tissues throughout the body, mediating parasympathetic effects, boosting the immune system, and blocking inflammation. Electromagnetic stimulation of the vagus nerve at the neck reduces systemic inflammation and is being tried in COVID-19 patients. This is actually true. This is actually being used in COVID-19 patients, for sure. Now, I think another important mini lesson here, right? Who here watching, who knows me, are a little excited to hear this? Are you guys excited? Are you like, oh my God, Sterling, you've been talking about this for years. This seems like kind of validation of what you've been saying for a while. Isn't this pretty cool, right? So thumbs up to those people, right? Who've been following me I've been on here on Facebook since 2018, 2019. Definitely through 2020, I've been telling you guys about this ever since COVID. It all comes together. Absolutely. Good. Thank you guys so much. Yes. Yeah, it's going to be scientific. I'm not trying to get political here. It's a waste of time and energy at this point in time. It's completely irrelevant to this. The politics don't care if the spike protein is in one person's body versus another person's body, right? Spike proteins don't care about your political affiliations. They want to hijack your central intelligence system in your brain and your cells and your vagus nerve so that you can harbor more spike proteins for longer, right? That doesn't really care. It doesn't care about your politics, okay? So getting back to the paper, what is ultrasound? Ultrasound refers to mechanical waves, so mechanical vibrations that are very, very fast, right? So Sue Lee, you say the TCM doctors say my spleen is weak. Look into that more. Spleen, as we're seeing, is pretty important, right? So mechanical waves above the audible range, above 20,000 hertz to hundreds of megahertz, but primarily hundreds of thousands of kilohertz to the low megahertz range. This technology has been safely used for medical imaging for nearly 100 years of human history. Ultrasound is very, very well understood. All right. So Anyway, so there's a lot more here. Splenic ultrasound, which is also indicated here just a little bit further, which is pretty cool. Splenic ultrasound. The spleen produces, this is cool. The spleen produces and stores blood cells, including immune cells, and also has significant vagal intervention or innervation. In animal model of systemic inflammatory arthritis, ultrasound of the spleen showed significant resolution of arthritis in all joints. If you're someone with arthritis, you might be like, come again? You might be like, pardon? What did he just say? So in the case of COVID, splenic ultrasound may change cytoskeletal plasticity in immune cells, inhibiting the ability of the virus to control and hijack the mTOC and or promote anti-inflammatory actions. Okay, so that's kind of what's on order here today. So yeah, certainly there's a lot more here. If we look at just kind of some specific conclusion sentences, which I think are important. Vagus nerve stimulation could be a promising adjunctive therapy for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. It can also be beneficial when the patient is not responsive to other kinds of therapies or suffering severe side effects from the interventions, vaccines maybe. The main advantages of low-intensity ultrasound are that it is safe, painless, non-invasive, relatively inexpensive, and readily available. Ultrasound machines are found in virtually every hospital. If you go to any hospital, there are ultrasound machines all over. You could probably go to your doctor and say, hey, can you do an ultrasound image of my spleen to see if it's been enlarged post-COVID or post-spike protein infiltration? That's what I would ask. So if you get to see your doctor anytime soon, ask them for a splenic ultrasound. Have them image your ultrasound for 10 minutes. Get a good set of pictures and get a good examination. You can see enlargement of the spleen in highly inflammatory situations. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So anyway, while we wait for effective antiviral drugs, and for those who do contract COVID-19, we propose non-traditional approaches that addresses and normalizes the hijack to microtubule and mTOC cytoskeleton. Okay, so let's just do a quick, like less than 60-second review of what this paper says. Okay, how COVID-19 hijacks the cytoskeleton and therapeutic interventions. It is true that SARS-CoV spike proteins inject themselves deep into the cells, hijack your biomolecular machinery, and they gain control of the microtubule cytoskeleton after attaching to membrane receptors and entering the cells. The virus then co-opts the dynamic intracellular cytoskeletal network of microtubules and the mTOC. And then this leads to the three factors that lead to, here we go. Three factors that lead to clinical pathology: viral load due to intracellular trafficking, cell-to-cell spread by Filopodia, and immune dysfunction ranging from hyperinflammatory cytokine storm to ineffective or absent response, is a result not of the cytokine storm. It's a result of spike proteins hijacking your, in this case, most likely spike proteins hijacking your vagus nerve, causing your vagus nerve to malfunction, which is why, like, look, you would be lucky if the only byproduct of spike protein infiltration and hijacking of your vagus nerve was that you had difficulty swallowing. That would be best case scenario, right? Given what all could happen. All that could happen, let's just go down a theoretical track here. If it's true that spike proteins are able to infiltrate, we've all seen this picture before. This is the centriole, the centrosome of your cell right here. This little bad boy is where these spike proteins are going. They're injecting themselves into the central hub of this, which is what controls the cellular spread. If you've ever seen a cell replicate in 24 hours, this is the bad boy that controls that whole process. You do not want this getting hijacked. This is getting hacked into by the spike protein, is basically what this paper is pointing to, okay? Once that happens in your vagus nerve, long term, you basically just get a body that is the zombie of COVID. So we're looking at a zombie. I mean, I'm not a big simulation guy, but have you noticed that in the 4 to 5 years prior to COVID, the zombie craze was huge, right? Everybody's thinking about the zombie horde. Now we're looking at a spike protein injecting itself into your body and hijacking cellular cytoskeletal intelligence, turning your cells basically into a host body for COVID. And that is difficult. That's so deep in your cell that electricity cannot even touch it. So if you're like, oh, I have my Truvega, I got my Gamma Core, I got my Hulist, I got my Pulsetto, I got my Dolphin. None of those are going to have any effect on any of this stuff. There's no physical mechanism by which electricity could even touch this at all. All you're doing is just pumping electricity into a zombie. That's all you're doing, right? So this is what that spike protein looks like when it's been docked into the hubs. This is a cross-section of that same centrosome that we saw, the MTOC, the organizing center. That's what it looks like. It's not good. And then, I mean, I think that this is the picture that should be on the cover, which is these barbed spikes at the bottom of the spike protein. Where do you think the spike is going, right? Has anybody explained to you the mechanism of why does this have a spike on the end of it? Where could it possibly go? What is it doing? Now, here's where it gets a little bit wild, which is that if your cytoskeleton is being hijacked, would that mean that the spike protein in a collective form might have emergent intelligence? Think about it like this. If you look at a colony of ants, I wouldn't say that one single ant was highly intelligent, but I would say that there are emergent intelligent processes. You ever see those videos? They were very viral probably like 8 years ago, where people went to Africa and they boiled down a bunch of aluminum and they poured gallons and liters of liquid hot aluminum, molten aluminum, into an anthill, and they let it cool down for days, okay? And then they dug out. It killed all the ants for sure, but what remained was a casting, an aluminum cast of the entire ant colony. And this thing is like beautiful. It looked like an ant colony that was designed by a higher form of intelligence. Like there was a master plan in play in the design of an ant colony. But that's emergent intelligence from small, independent units that have some manner of intelligence. You could argue that one ant is slightly intelligent, but one single ant doesn't have the brain capacity to design an entire ant colony. But it's the emergence of collective intelligence. When you have thousands of ants working together in small units together over time, that you create this large system. Now, if I were going to ask the question, what is an ant trying to build? Well, it's trying to build a colony. It's trying to build some kind of a structure underground for the queen. If a spike protein could be thought of as an equivalent single unit of intelligence, and it's emergent in this cytoskeleton, what is a spike protein? What is it trying to create? What does the hive mind look like? If there are billions of human beings all walking around with spike proteins that are literally hijacking huge components of their intelligent body and their system. The implications, I can't even answer. Do you guys want to, let me just pose it to the audience here. What do you think, right? I want to get some, of course I would bring you on live with me. I would probably interview some of you, maybe Joseph someday. You could jump on and we could do shared screen thing or something like that, I'm open to a conversation, of course. But just in the chat, what do you think spike proteins in this capacity? What's the emergent collective thing that spike proteins would build if you had collection of intelligence? Okay, cool. So we got to, and seriously participate in the comments. This will be rewarding for you. Sarah wrote, survival of virus. Absolutely. That is 100%. And let's take that one step further. The implication of the survival of the virus. What does that look like? If all humans are walking around with spike proteins stuck in their body, latched into their cytoskeleton, that means that all of society is just for the I don't know, the collective moving forward of just the spike protein, basically, for COVID, right? So that's an interesting thing. Lena, you wrote survival wall. Absolutely. So I'm seeing a similarity here. Survival. Obviously, the spike protein knows where it needs to go. And then Jody, I think you have some interesting comment here. Jody wrote, first she wrote evolution of humanity, and then she wrote or de-evolution. And it totally depends. I would say whichever answer you give would be more based on your innate optimism or pessimism. Now, I'm the kind of person who likes to look at humanity over a long time course. I'm talking decades or centuries. I'm sure that with enough time, because this is what would be considered a slow-moving disaster. Can we agree on that? It's a fast-moving disaster is there's a nuclear atomic war and we're all basically dead within a few weeks. That's not a slow-moving disaster. Something like food scarcity is a slow-moving disaster. Mass infection and hijacking of all human neural cytoskeleton systems is a disaster of significance. But it is a slow-moving disaster. So maybe if I were going to take Jody's first comment of evolution of humanity and think, how could this move humanity forward if ultimately, if we consider the cytoskeleton to be our cytoskeleton, then anytime there's an invasion of your cytoskeleton, that would change things, and that you would, so wouldn't you naturally suspect that an invasion of spike proteins into the core cytoskeleton of your body, which is what these are doing, would, that their interest, that they're not acting in the best interest of you as a human body, but they are probably looking out for the interest of the spike proteins more than you. I think most people intuitively could guess that if there's some kind of something latching into your body and sticking into it and hijacking its function so that you can, and especially when we see that a lot of people are dying from this, that they're developing severe long COVID illnesses, is that this is a parasitic, potentially fatal infection and a hijacking of your cytoskeleton, right? So I think we can all intuitively posit that directionally, this probably isn't great for us right now. However, if we flipped that, long term, if we can survive and move through it, what if in the future generations, what if your cytoskeleton, which did have to navigate millions and billions of years of evolution to even exist, what if eventually these spike proteins were seen as another computational unit of your cytoskeleton? What if, going back to this evolution question, what if rather than it impeding us and hijacking us, what if we hijacked the spike protein? Because clearly, if you think of molecular computational ability. There's enough molecular matter in here to give input into your cytoskeleton, but it goes both ways. Okay? If something can influence me, I can also influence it. It goes both ways. Okay? So maybe short term, very bad. Long term could literally be like an evolution, like a humanity upgrade. Once your body figures out that you can hijack the spike protein back, that now it's contributed willingly into your body. I mean, and think about it. Your cytoskeleton is the most highly intelligent piece of your entire body. All this has done is, yes, caused short-term damage, and it is potentially fatal. It can really mess you up. But if you know how to circumvent the damage, then potentially, I know this could be a radical idea, I believe potentially that longer term, that our bodies, our innate bodily intelligence will turn that equation around and say, hey, spike proteins, now what if we're just born with spike proteins? Because I believe that's probably going to be it. If we're injecting everybody with mRNA, it's in our genes now. So get used to it. It's everywhere. Spike proteins may just be a part of your life. Eventually, your cytoskeleton will figure out a way to use these as, like, I don't know, do they look like antenna? Do they look like little nodules? Like if I were going to upgrade a computer, I might like stick in little external computational USB drives all throughout it, upgrade it. That would most likely be the move. This is just another way of fitting computational power in there. Awesome. Yeah, sure, guys. Cassandra, if you want to pass out some info, screw it. Normally, I just block you because I feel like that's spammy behavior. And I don't, just so you guys know, I don't know who Cassandra is. Never seen her in my life. Message her at your own risk. If she's going to tell you to drink your own urine, that's on you. So whatever, right? She may not be selling something, but she might be telling you to, drink your own piss. And I have nothing to do with any of that. Okay. So whatever. But, so certainly a compelling, certainly a kind of a compelling thing. Also, yes. And also just be mindful as well. Sometimes we do get people who are scammers in the Facebook group, and they're going to tell you about Dr. Ubadiah from Nigeria, about his herbal fix. And, guys, just again, be cautious. There's just random people on the internet. Do some research, okay, on this person before you start putting some weird shit in your face. So she's very active. Yes, Sui and Lena, and get on that. Cassandra, she's probably got something really good for you. I'm sure. It's probably going to be drinking your own urine, but hey, whatever. So that is that. Yes, Sarah, question everything. Question especially, drinking your own Ubadiah. Yes, see, exactly. So Cassandra, I just want to point this out because if you guys can identify these patterns, it's amazing. I have to ban people every day who go into the Facebook group and post literally on an unrelated comment about Dr. Ubadiah, literally this guy, Dr. Ubadiah, and how he cured me of some miraculous disease. Yes, he's also no, Cassandra, you're saying no, there's random people. This comes from a medical doctor. Dr. Ubadiah, it's in his name, doctor. So he's obviously a doctor, right? So, of course, I'm also talking about Dr. Ubadiah, just like you. So anyway, hey, I'm interested to see how it goes. I have about 1% confidence that you have a non-Dr. Ubadiah from Nigeria, non-piss drinking option for people, but you do you. And Lena, let me know how that goes, okay? If that pans out, awesome, super stoked. So anyway, so this spike protein thing is... Oh, not sure if you answered my question. Sue, could you re-answer the question? It just might have... Yeah, sweet. Your message got like down. So please ask your question again. But basically, let's get to what would be the potential solution, which would have been... So if the spike proteins are in there, so in the short term, you don't want spike proteins in your body. What do? And also, you don't want your vagus nerve compromised, because one of the side effects of spike proteins is the compromising of your vagus nerve and the overexpression of cytokines, which cause inflammatory damage throughout your body. So in the short term, again, it's like, do you ever see that movie Independence Day? The aliens come to planet Earth. Some people see them as friendly. Some people see them as deadly. Some people get on the roof of a building and say, we're ready for you. And then the aliens just send lasers down and just destroy and kill everybody. So I don't trust spike proteins at all. I'm not saying that right now that they're spike proteins are not a force for good. You want them out of your body. However, as my group is 25,000 people, this message needs to probably get out to about 1.5 billion people in the next 2 years. Would you help me do it? Right? Would you help spread this message to other people? Tell them that a Mr. Cooley from the nation state of Washington in the Pacific Northwest has this miraculous cure, and make sure you add into the bottom of that message, it's not drinking your piss. Promise. Okay, hear me out. I'm not going to tell you to drink your piss. Okay, I saw this funny meme on Twitter, and it was like, there's a natural progression for health influencers in order to retain attention from their audience. Because I'm not developing an audience here, just so you guys know. I don't give a shit about developing an audience. I'm trying to find people that, that I want to work with and this kind of stuff. And I'm sharing my journey along the way. So I don't really care if there's an audience or not. Hey, mama. Oh, okay. Okay, anyway. I got to run, guys, but super great to see you. We got family visiting here, and I'm going to run. But yeah, so basically, at the end of the day, you need to keep your vagus nerve healthy. You need to make sure that your body is... I'm selling hope, Cassandra. I'm selling hope, right? And I give away tons of stuff for free. Tons of stuff. Yes, awesome. But yeah, no, Cassandra, here's the thing. If you want to come into my Facebook group and sell something, don't make this be the first video you've ever been on, okay? I've been here for 6 years. You've probably been here for like a day, and you're coming in and questioning me. Look around a little bit before you're like, who are you? Who are you? You joined my Facebook group. I didn't come to your house and jam this down your throat, okay? So before you start giving me the nth degree, like, read around a little bit, like, poke around the Facebook group a little bit before, like, who is this guy? What are you selling? It's like, I do live videos every single day, okay? So that's it. You're selling stuff. Okay, yeah. Oh, I'm selling stuff. Oh, you're not. Okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah, you're not pitching for Dr. Ubadiah from Nigeria just like every other scammer. I have screenshots of all these people. I can show you. So no worries. All good. Great. So anyway, you're out of here. So yeah, in the interest of time, I do have to run, but guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to have you. And yes, no, seriously, guys, I'm certain that Cassandra, who just joined the group today, has a real solid non-urine drinking solution for your COVID needs. I'm sure she's got your back, okay? So please reach out to her. She's got you, okay? All right, guys, thanks so much. I got to run. Love you. Peace. I'll call out names, but my Facebook thing just went poof, and I'll see you guys soon. Oh yeah, thanks Patty, thanks Swee. Yeah, Swee, I'll try to get to your question soon, okay? Thanks Sarah, thanks everybody. If I didn't call your name, I love you. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks Amy. Hey, good to see you. All right, take care. I gotta go.